And now it's time for another Dice Tower review with Mike Vincent.
Hello, and thank you for watching one of our final videos looking at the core set for The Lord of the Rings, the living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Today we're looking at the fourth and final sphere. We're taking a look at the lore cards. I might do a short video looking at the neutral cards. There's not too many of them, but I think it's worth mentioning. But for today, we're just going to go in and look at the lore cards. So a little disclaimer, lore is probably the sphere I've played the least. I've played many many decks where I've had a primary either tactics or primary spirit with a smattering of lore, but haven't played primarily lore decks very much. So just keep that in mind, I guess, when we're going through these cards. However, lore has gotten some really neat cards as of late, especially a new hero, which those of you who play the game probably know who I'm alluding to, and eventually we will get around to looking at those expansions and those cool cards. But for now, let's jump in and take a look at the lore cards for the core set. Okay, so let's start today by taking a look at Glorfindel. Glorfindel has a fairly high starting threat at 12. He has nice stats with 3 willpower, 3 attack, and 1 defense, and he has superior hit points with 5. He is a noble, he is Noldor, and he is a warrior, and his special ability reads Action, pay 1 resource from Glorfindel's pool to heal 1 damage to any character. Limit once per round. So Glorfindel, he is a good hero, particularly when you consider the core set. For those of you who've been playing the game, you will know that a second edition of Glorfindel will come out that is much superior to this version, in my opinion. But in the context of the core set, Glorfindel, he's nice in that he is able to quest with 3 willpower, he's able to get some damage done with 3 attacking, and he can even take an undefended attack or 2 with 5 hit points. There are a few cards that will allow you to heal at this point in the game, but still healing is something that really only the lore sphere is good at, and so being able to pay a resource to heal is a nice option. I do think that there's more cost-efficient ways to do healing, but the nice thing about Glorfindel, he does allow you to heal characters. So some cards only allow you to heal heroes, and we'll be taking a look at those later in this video. But Glorfindel is nice in that you can heal both characters and heroes. Sorry, both allies and heroes. So a solid one. It's unfortunate that he has such high attack and such high willpower, and that unless you have an ability to ready him, perhaps if you use Unexpected Courage, and you play it on him, then you could use him for questing and then ready him to do some damage. But yeah, I think in the context of the first core set, Glorfindel is a good hero. Here you can see Beravor. She is a very well-rounded hero and one that's very versatile depending on what you want. She has a starting threat of 10, she has 2 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, and 4 hit points. So very respectable statistics. She is a Dunedain and a ranger, and her action reads, exhaust Beravor to choose a player. That player draws 2 cards. It's worth mentioning that this card has been errated, and in addition to this, text reads, this can only be done once per round. So for those of you who are hoping to put Unexpected Courage on her and exhaust it twice to have her draw 4 cards in a turn, unfortunately, Fantasy Flight caught onto this and adapted the rules. So you can only use this once per round. However, if you're looking for a way to get some card draw and perhaps you don't want to include many of those cards in your deck, then being able to pick up 2 cards is very nice. And because her statistics are well-rounded, perhaps she would be a good candidate for Unexpected Courage, in that you could exhaust her to draw 2 cards, but then you could ready her to use her if you need to attack, if you need to defend, or if you want a little bit of extra questing power. So she's not necessarily a hero I would play with unless I knew I wanted a lot of card draw in my deck. I think there are better heroes, but I think she is good in that she is well-rounded, not too expensive, and certainly if you're looking to free up some space in your deck, maybe you don't want to include many card draw events or attachments, and you just want to be able to use your hero for that, then that is an option. It is unfortunate though, as you do have to exhaust her. So unless you have an ability to ready her again, exhausting a hero to draw cards might not make much sense. So I think with the right deck in the right situation, Beravor could be good, but is not a hero that I've played with too much. So here we see Denethor, an interesting hero who has some strengths and some weaknesses in my opinion. So he has a starting threat of 8, which is quite low, which is excellent. He has 1 willpower, 1 attack, but a very nice 3 defense. This makes him one of the best defenders in the game. He does have 3 hit points. He is Gondor, he is a noble, and he is steward. And his action reads, exhaust Denethor to take a look at the top card of the encounter deck. You may move that card to the bottom of the deck. So Denethor is a hero who I don't normally play with, but if you have one of those nasty encounter sets where there's 1 or 2 treachery cards or a certain enemy who you know is just brutal and is going to ruin your game, then Denethor can be a nice option. Being able to take a look at the top card and potentially move it to the bottom and deal with it later is nice. Again, we see a potential candidate for unexpected courage or readying effects, as you do have to exhaust Denethor to take a top look at the card of the encounter deck. So with such a high defense of 3, it's nice if you can use him both to look at the top card and potentially move it to the bottom, and then to have him defend. So I think for an 8 starting threat, even if you're not using his special ability, having a defense of 3 is nice. The problem is that if you do use his ability, he's then exhausted and you can't use his excellent defense. So a good hero in the right deck and against the right encounter deck can be a very nice asset. Okay, so now let's turn our attention to the allies for the lore sphere. And here we see the daughter of the Nimrodel. She has a cost of 3, she has 1 willpower, 0 attack, 0 defense, and 1 hit point. She is a Sylvan, and her action reads, exhaust daughter of the Nimrodel to heal up to 2 damage on any 1 hero. So this is not an ally that would have any utility, basically except for the special ability. But the special ability is certainly one that can come in handy. Being able to heal is something that only lore can do in the core set, and there's not that many cards that allow you to do this. Unlike Glorfindel, who can heal 1 hit point per resource, Daughter of the Nimrodel is nice in that she allows you to heal up to 2 damage on any 1 hero. So if you have 1 hero who's your defender, who's going to be your damage sponge or your tank and end up taking quite a bit of damage, then she can be a handy one to have around. You may not be able to really use her as a chump blocker in that she will probably be exhausted if you're regularly healing your heroes, but if your heroes are healed up and you're in a bind, then she could serve the function of being a chump blocker. She's a bit expensive at a cost of 3, but I think she combos very well with the leadership Gléowine. Now, if you remember back to the leadership videos, Gléowine gets resources every time he takes damage. So if you have the daughter of the Nimrodel who is healing him continuously, then he can continue to take damage, generate resources, and then be healed with the daughter of the Nimrodel. So a good healing card. I think in the future expansions there will be better healing cards, but for the core set, I think daughter of the Nimrodel is worth bringing along in most cases. So next we see the Erebor Hammersmith. He has a cost of 2 and he has 1 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 3 hit points. He is a dwarf and a craftsman, and his response reads, after you play Erebor Hammersmith, return the topmost attachment in any player's discard pile to his hand. So a nice ability in the right situation. If you lose a very crucial attachment, perhaps something like Unexpected Courage, there are cards and decks that make you discard attachments, so this can be one handy way to get that back into play. He is also a dwarf, and as I've mentioned in previous videos, dwarf synergies are something that develop quite early on when you're buying expansions. So having a dwarf with fairly low statistics at the beginning, but those can be buffed if you're playing with the right cards and the right synergies. With a defense of 1 and 3 hit points, he can also take a hit or 2 and could be a decent defender as well. So I think the Erebor Hammersmith for a cost of 2 is a worthy ally and one worth bringing along, particularly if you're going to be playing a dwarf deck. So here we see the Henamarth Riversong. He has a cost of 1, has 1 willpower, 1 attack, 0 defense, and 1 hit point, and he is a Sylvan. He is fairly fragile with 1 hit point. As I've mentioned in previous videos, there hasn't been much synergy for the Sylvan keyword yet, but his action reads, exhaust Henamarth Riversong to look at the top card of the encounter deck. This ability could certainly be useful. If you're playing a very hard encounter, maybe you've lost many times and you feel like being able to plan a little bit and look ahead to see what's coming, you can do this every round. You have to exhaust him, but every turn you can at least take a look at half of the encounter cards coming out if you're playing 2 players. I think this card gains even more utility if you're playing solo, because you always get to see what encounter card you're going to be dealing with that turn. So being able to do some preparation, look ahead, see, do I have to fight an enemy? Am I getting a treachery? Am I getting a location? Will let you plan ahead and decide who you want to exhaust and how much you want to commit to the quest. So Henamarth Riversong, I think really useful in a solo deck, but even useful in a 2-player deck. And worst case scenario, you know, he's 1 willpower or he's a cheap chump blocker with 1 cost. So here we see Gléowine. He has a cost of 2, has 1 willpower, 0 attack, 0 defense, and 2 hit points. Action reads, exhaust Gléowine to choose a player. That player draws 1 card. Yeah, I think this is a nice card. For a cost of 2, which isn't too expensive, this basically allows you to draw 1 extra card a turn. So depending on what you're going for and how many cards you're hoping to generate across a game, being able to draw 1 extra card a turn I think is very good. Keep in mind, Gléowine is unique, so you can only have 1 of these on the table at a time, but it's also nice that you or your opponent, sorry, not your opponent, your partner, can draw an extra card. So if you're running low on cards, if your partner's running low on cards, this is a nice way to get some extra card draw. So if you're not looking to take a hero like Beravor, Gléowine can be a nice addition to ensure that you're still getting lots of cards generated. And again, could be used as a chump block. All right, the last ally we're going to take a look at is the Miner of the Iron Hills, and I think he is one of the most useful allies from the core set. He has a cost of 2, he has 0 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 2 hit points. He is a dwarf, and his response reads, after Miner of the Iron Hills enters play, choose and discard 1 condition attachment from play. This response and his special ability, in my opinion, makes him an excellent ally. There are certainly some encounters where there are nasty condition attachments, and if you have to take out a hero and he's suddenly useless, or you have to raise your threat in order to exhaust him, then Miner of the Iron Hills is a very nice card to have in your deck, because being able to ditch those condition attachments can be the decision between winning or losing an encounter. He's also a dwarf, so again, we mentioned there's lots of dwarf synergies, so you can use this guy for many different purposes. You can bump up his hit points and his defense if you want him as a blocker, or perhaps with the right cards, you could also give him some willpower so he can quest. So yeah, I think the Miner of the Iron Hills is a crucial card if you're up against a nasty encounter set with some brutal condition attachments, or he could just be, you know, a decent ally to bring along in a dwarf deck. So now looking at the attachment cards, here we see Self-Preservation. This has a cost of 3, it's considered to be a skill, and it reads, attached to a character, exhaust Self-Preservation to heal 2 points of damage from attached character. So we're seeing again another healing card, and there's pros and cons to all the different ones, but I feel that this one is nice in that it allows you to heal characters. Like Glorfindel, and unlike the daughter of the Nimrodel, she can only heal heroes, whereas this Self-Preservation will allow you to heal either heroes or allies. Both heal 2 points of damage, and so again, I would say if you are in a situation where you have 1 hero who is your primary blocker, or perhaps in this case it could even be an ally who is a primary blocker, and you want to just keep regenerating their hit points so that they can continue to defend, then this card can be very useful. Again, this is a card you could potentially use with Gléowine, so that you can continue to generate extra resources and continue to heal him and just use his ability of generating resources again and again. And so, yeah, I think Self-Preservation is good. Again, 3 is a bit expensive, but if you know you're heading into a combat-heavy quest and you're going to have 1 hero or 1 character, ally, who's going to be blocking again and again, it may well be worth the 3 cost for that. So there we have Self-Preservation.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.